Why Uzbekistan's ban on cousin marriage matters. Uzbekistan is set to ban cousin marriages in an effort to reduce birth defects, with official statements showing that nearly 10% of babies born with disabilities in the country last year were from consanguineous unions. Consanguineous means cousin marriage. The proposed amendments to the family code aim to prevent marriages between first and second cousins. The issue has sparked debate among Uzbeks, with some defending the practice and others supporting the ban. How do I pronounce this? Sabovhak Sabohatkhon Alimova, who married her first cousin, argues that such marriages offer more trust and love between marriages. Well, Sirojiddin Toghaev, who was born with disabilities, supports the ban, stating, "Don't marry your relatives. Your children will suffer as a result, not you." Uzbekistan's move to ban cousin marriage is significant, if not only for its potential health impact, but also for its broader societal implications. This ban represents a clash between deeply rooted cultural traditions and modern public health concerns in a predominantly Muslim nation of 35 million people. So there's a lot to unpack here. Armin, I think it would be important background for people to understand, like explain to them how Islam influences this trend.
Well, I mean, Islam just allows cousin marriage. That's it. Yeah, that's is a short summary of it. And because it's allow it, no state should stand in the way. What make unlawful. I mean, the Quran specifically says, "Do not like make unlawful what God has made lawful." So yeah, you cannot Islamically. You should not do this. God has allowed it. God knows His creation more than you mortals. So shut the hell up and just allow cousin marriage. I mean, yeah. So that's basically it. This is basically man's law standing up against God's law. Uh, Susie, that's a very short. By the way, Pakistan, like, look at this. Uzbekistan is already suffering a lot because of the results of cousin marriage, but they managed to come and eventually like stand because they know how harmful this is to society, and they're now stopping it. But imagine how what's going to happen to Pakistan, because I can't imagine if Pakistan would do anything like this. They wouldn't dare, right? Like people in the live chat from Pakistan government would never dare allow like stop come between Muslims and their cousin marriages, right? So because this is the damage to Uzbekistan is going to stop, even though it's a great damage that is going to stay for a long time, but at least it's not going to get any worse. However, in Pakistan, a lot of people are suffering. Like, to be honest, guys, this is not me like saying something. I know a lot of people you are gonna think that I'm saying something that is so questionable. I shouldn't be saying this, but Pakistan's like average IQ is going to be heavily significantly affected by the fact that there's so much cousin marriage, and they're not going to stop it. Yes, exactly. So I know young atheist was going to respond to this. Yeah, Pakistan can never do that. Imagine coming between Muslims in Pakistan and their cousin marriage. Like the whole society would riot. They're like, we want to f our cousins. We want to f our cousins, and no state can stand between us and our cousins, right? And imagine what's going to happen to the future of generations. I mean, Pakistan is already suffering from two evils, which is poverty and Islam, and imagine this third evil of continuous cousin marriages. What's going to happen to the future of Pakistan if you just, it has a huge impact on society. Um, and all of these are the three great evils that is taking Pakistan to unimaginable. You thought that Pakistan is a failed state right now. If it continues the same way, I can't imagine what's going to happen with this, with Islamism and poverty, and then continuous cousin marriages, and a drop in IQ, and also a lot of diseases, a lot of also health defects. Yeah, the future of Pakistan doesn't look. At least Uzbekistan came in the way and stopped it. Um, yeah. What
It's
do you think,
really
Susan?
interesting. This spurred me to go look into kind of some of the anthropology of cousin marriage in Islamized countries. And this was so interesting. I found a quote that said, in the relation with the spread of Islam, a study that occurred in 2000 found that a parallel cousin, meaning a father's brother's daughter, so basically your female cousin, marriage is most likely, likely to be common in areas that were part of the 8th century Umayyad Caliphate and remained in the Islamic world. So that would include Uzbekistan. The researcher argues that while there is some function between Islam and this form of cousin marriage, the permission to marry your female cousin does not appear to be sufficient to persuade people to actually marry the female cousin, even if the marriage brings its economic developments. According to this researcher, a systematic acceptance and practice of parallel cousin marriage took place when Islamized non Arab groups adopted Arab norms and practices, even if they had no direct connection with Islam to raise their social standing. So basically, there's many different, if looking into the research behind this, this is basically different behaviors that a tribe would take to make the tribe stronger against other groups in its environment, to prevent it from assimilating into other groups in the environment and keep it stronger. And then this just was spread through the practices of Islam. So there are different rulings within Islam that incentivize this kind of marriage. So one of them, for example, is the issue of bride price. So when there is a marriage that occurs, unlike Western aspects of certain practices of dowry, the bride price is given to the bride from the groom, and it is solely the property of the bride, not the bride's family. So and this is called meher. And this incentivizes cousin marriages because the bride price for a female cousin is likely to be half of the bride price of an outsider. So that's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is that if the bride price has to go directly to the bride, by marrying a cousin, you're keeping the wealth within the family. Another incentive from a tribal perspective is that there's something called egnate and affinal ties. An egnate is these ties that are along the paternal line, which are obviously going to be very important in a clan-based, tribe-based society. And this is a way to help maintain the strongest ties, whereas ties through marriage might not be as strong. And it is also a way to make maybe a distant family member or a distant tribe member closer to the tribe by making their ties both agnate and affinal. So you're making them
Right.
doubly strong. And then there's also the issue of inheritance and the inheritance owed to women. And basically, by marrying cousins, again, it's another incentive to keep the wealth within the family. And these are all like outlined and legitimized within practices of Sharia. Not
Yeah.
to mention the
So
fact
you,
that Muhammad married one of his cousins, and people generally, like to emulate Muhammad.
not to mention Abraham married his sister, according to all three, like Christians and Jews also believe that Abraham married his own sister. So yeah, this is actually a problem within all Abrahamic religions.
Yeah.
Um, but basically, so they are trying to keep the wealth in their family, but they are making the gene pool. They're destroying the wealth of their gene pool. That's the expense but the monetarily gains, right? So I
The
hope it's worth all
BBC,
the
by the way, if people
hospital bills. Yeah, go on.
If people want to learn about this, the BBC, like probably 10 years ago, did a giant documentary about this issue happening in the UK, in the British Pakistani community, and basically how the UK government is like not willing to come out and call a thing. Because apparently, like I said earlier, it's like, oh, if we don't talk about a problem, that doesn't make the problem real. Like, or talking about the problem is going to cause the problem. So we can't talk about it.
Mhm.
Um, which is not helpful because in the documentary goes into how this um, basically causes a huge inordinate expense upon the NHS. Um, it's really really interesting. Oh, there was something else I wanted to say. So I just thought that was interesting context when I was reading this, because it's not exactly like that. Islam doesn't mandate this. Islam allows it. And then there are other systems within Islam that basically originated from tribal society structure that were then legitimized and brought into the faith that then helped this practice spread around the world, which was very, very interesting. And it reminded me of this video, and it is called Why Are Muslim Countries Poor? And it's by a channel called Visual Economic. And I really, really encourage people to go watch that video. Why are Muslim countries poor? And it basically outlines how, even before there was any interaction with major Western colonizing forces in the world, the GDP of the Muslim world was much lower on average than the rest. And it's because of many customs that came from Sharia enabled there to be it made wealth accumulation extremely difficult over generations because of different inheritance laws. And that the video Why Are Muslim Countries Poor by Visual Economic is so funny, because they start out kind of doing this teaser, and they're like, is it because of history? Is it because of culture? Is it because of colonialism? Like, let's investigate and find out. And then as you continue through the video, like, what's not being said is because of the culture. um but I encourage people to go watch that video, because it is very, very informative. Oh, Armin has brought forward some scripture. Okay, let's get into this.
So you said that God doesn't say that you should do cousin marriage; it just allows it. Okay. Well, the problem is that allowing it means that it has made lawful, right? And if it has made, if God, so we, for example, God, there's a list of people that you are not allowed to marry in Quran. It says like he has a list, right? And it does not include cousins. So because it does not include cousins, that means it has been made lawful. And because it has been made lawful, the Quran says do not prohibit them, right? So this is Quran chapter 5 verse 87 says, all you who have believed, do not basically Muslims or mu'mineen, do not prohibit the good things which Allah has made lawful. So that's, or the second translation is, you who believe, do not forbid the good things God has made lawful to you. So that basically means that just because a lot of people say, okay, Quran allows it, okay, but the Quran doesn't say that everybody should allow it. The Quran doesn't say that we should not ban it. Well, actually, it does. The Quran basically says that everything that I have not banned should remain unbanned. And you, as a Muslim, should not ban what I have allowed. So, this is why, if a government comes and says, like, oh, you cannot have cousin marriages, that would be in a violation of this Quranic verse. There, this is a problem.
So yeah, congratulations to Uzbekistan. Uh Still an authoritarian regime, which I completely oppose, for the record. But this was a good move.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for violating Allah's commandments. Always appreciated. Seriously. Um.
We got a few super chats.
Oh, yes. Let's do the super chat.
Erican is saying consanguineous marriages should be banned up to third cousins worldwide and up to fifth cousins if both parties are from the same town. I know that there are very like small isolated communities that literally have to keep track of all the genealogy stuff. Is it in Iceland or whatever? Like where they have to keep track of this exactly for this purpose. It's in the best interest of the public.
Or you could just, like, we're getting to a place where everybody could just easily get a DNA test. and let the doctor, like the experts, just tell you if you can marry or not. If you're close and if you're too close and you don't know if it's safe or not, just go get a DNA test and they will tell you. How about that?
J-
How about that?
Johnson. Oh,
And also, I think here's the thing: for the sake of being liberal, I think that maybe people should be able to marry, even if they are too close. They should just adopt. Like for example, let's say, oh, I really love my cousin. I really love her, and I want to marry her. Okay, what if you go? If I go get a snip, okay, and I can't have a kid, and like, okay, then I should be able to marry her. Like, okay, then like, I think there should be ways that we could make things happen for people. So if you get a vasectomy, then you should be allowed to marry your cousin and do whatever you want then. Right?
okay, but the state is not going to get involved in legally mandating
No,
that you get sterilized to be able to do that. That's not going to happen.
that's not what No, listen to what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the state is not saying that you should get a vasectomy, but the state is saying you cannot get married. But if you happen to choose to get a vasectomy, then the state should not be able to ban your marriage anymore. So I'm not saying the state is mandating a vasectomy. I'm reducing a ban. I'm not adding a ban. I'm reducing a ban. I'm reducing the ban on your marriage.
O- okay, yeah. I understand the point that you're getting at. The
Mm,
idea of writing that into law is unlikely. That's what I'm saying.
okay.
Um, Jack Johnson gave a super chat saying, "Is banning cousin marriages, polygamy, incestual marriages, and other marriages between consenting adults liberalism? If it is not, then why?"
Is
This goes into much more complicated matters, including Armin's hot takes on incest.
no, incest is not inherently like wrong. It's wrong because of the consequences, right? I am a utilitarian. I do not judge whether something is wrong or not based on the disgust factor. Like, ew, gross, therefore wrong. Like, who am I to like? I don't know. There's certain type of food that I find disgusting. Should I ban it because I find it disgusting? I mean, as an extremely straight man, right? Gay sex is like not pleasant for me to watch. So should we ban it because I don't like it? So it's not based on this is the weirdest moral structure that people could have. Like we have divine command theory, we have deontology, we have virtue ethicists, we have utilitarians, and we have other types of consequentialists like Machiavelli. But what is this weird? Like, there's another one that people are adding is like everything that I find disgusting is immoral. No, it's not based on disgust. We're against incest for because of the consequences of incest, not because of an inherent value. Or anyways, I'm not going to get into moral systems. I will tell you, I could do a stream. I mean, I have done streams on this, right? Yeah, but it's based on consequences. Like, you guys, you is not a moral argument. Okay, you have to show me the negative consequences, and there are negative consequences to many of the things that you're mentioning here, and that's why we're against them. And even if you could eliminate the all the negative consequences, you have to understand that society needs to come up with rules that are not is not meant to stop a harm in every single case. It's supposed to a general rule utilitarianism where it's more likely to stop a harm. So even if you could find exceptions where it's not causing a harm, you cannot expect the government to basically come and evaluate harm in every single case. It's supposed to put on rules that is just more likely to reduce harm most of the time, even if there are exceptions. The exceptions does not mean that we cannot, because if you do that, then for example, let's say you say like you cannot speed here, the speeding limit here is 60, for example. Let's say, like, okay, but is it that much harmful if I go 61? What if there's no cars? Like, what if in this situation it's okay for me to go, I don't know, 70? Yeah, sure, you might find exceptions, but the government has to come up with a number. The government needs to come up with a rule. The government cannot come evaluate every single case and do an harm analysis. It doesn't work like that. It has to come up with a general rule. So even if you find examples of incest that are not harmful, the government just has to ban it because that rule in general, it just reduces harm more often than not. Does that
Yeah,
make
and that
sense?
was And you just explained why I said that I thought the vasectomy thing that you mentioned before was unlikely, because it's like that's
Yeah,
such an edge case that it's a hard
mhm,
burden for the government. They're not going to legislate that.
yeah, yeah. Right, right. That makes sense. I see your point. Actually, you're right.
Um, thank you for proving my point, sir.
You-
You talked yourself into it. Love to see. No kidding.
yeah.
Cajun American gave a super chat saying, "I think House of Dragons is incest propaganda."
I mean, actually, I don't think so because I mean, look at their son. So I think it actually is an anti-incest, you know, piece of content.
Uh, and he's saying they can still get married and get gay meat donors. Again, the
Oh,
likelihood of this actually being executed well is small, so it's safer to just prohibit it outright.
yes, 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 yes. The government, for example, does not come and say, "Do not cross red lights," unless it's 2 a.m. in the morning and there's not a single car to be seen around, and there are no consequences for crossing a red light. In those rare situations, then it's legal for you to cross a red light. The government does not do that. The government just says, "No, do not cross a red light. That's illegal," right? Because
Yeah.
it cannot afford to just do come and analyze harm reduction in every single scenario.